Believe it or not, in the not too distant past, I too was a college student. Some interesting things happened while I was in college, but most of the time, nothing interesting happened. It was a pretty boring experience for me. However, I have never seen or heard of anything like what has just happened at ASU's West Valley Campus. So today's episode is going to be a little one-off episode. We're just going to focus solely on this story because the details are absolutely insane. And the fact that you probably haven't even heard about it in and of itself is absurd and is an atrocity. And it just goes to show the incompetence of the media in doing their job and purporting stories. So, welcome to Principled Politics and welcome to this short episode. I'm your host, and today we're going to cut through the commentary. Well, like I said in the intro, today's story revolves around ASU's West Valley Campus, and this just took place a week ago. September 19th was the date. And basically, I'll paint the scene for you. I'll set the scene. We had a group of students who were approaching their economics class. They were heading to class. We had a student in particular named Mara Daffrin. She's a 19-year-old student at ASU's West Valley campus. And she was basically heading towards class as usual, nothing off, nothing unusual about it. And the students gathered in, entered the room, and there was a particular student who was already seated in the room. And her name was Casey Sloan. So we have two characters here. We have Mara Daffrin and Casey Sloan. Mara Daffrin was entering the classroom building, and just as Daffrin entered the room, Casey Sloan, from her seat, had a paring knife, lunged out of her seat, and stabbed Mara Daffrin 2 times. 2 witnesses immediately ran to Daffrin's help, managed to disarm Casey Sloan and restrain her. Now, if you haven't heard of this story, it is very interesting to say the least. Not only did this take place on a very prominent college campus, but there's a lot of crazy updates that have taken place recently in this past week to make this case extremely disgusting in the way in which it's being handled. So we'll start here. We have a few articles that basically detail a story and leave out and put in a lot of the details that I'm probably missing. So I'm going to pull up an article here. We'll go ahead and read the headline, and then I'll show some images, and we'll be able to get some more details. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to start with this image of Mara Daffrin after paramedics had arrived and were basically giving her some treatment, trying to stabilize her, make sure that everything was okay. So here's this picture of Mara Daffrin after being stabbed by Casey Sloan twice. So here's the first picture I wanted to show you guys. This is the picture of Mara Daffrin, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that name right, 19-year-old who was stabbed at ASU's West Valley campus. Here she is sitting, or laying on the ground, I should say, paramedics surrounding her, oxygen mask, giving her IV, checking blood pressure, making sure that she's stable and doing good. Thankfully, spoiler included, she is doing just fine. She is stable. She is in recovery. So she is doing good. Let's move over here to the article to take a look at some of the more details about this case. So moving on to the article. This is from The Root, and it says, the shocking details behind a Black Arizona student stabbing a woman during class. Now, first off, I'll give some credit where credit's due to this publisher. It is very rare, and I don't know what their biases are. I don't know what's going on here. I've never really read much from this specific source, but I mean, the fact that they detailed Black Arizona student, obviously, everything, racial dynamics in the country, that is extremely rare to see a publisher go out of their way to detail that. Usually it'll say Arizona student, blah, blah, blah. Not that the race matters in any way, shape, or form, but if it was a white student, we'll get there. We'll get there. So it says, starting here at the article, on the morning of September 19th, students at Arizona State University were filing into economics class when out of nowhere, a knife attack almost happened, seemingly at random. I don't know why they detailed almost happened. A knife attack did happen, seemingly at random, yes. Just poor writing there. But police allege the attack was not random at all. Student Casey Sloan, 19, lunged from her seat at classmate Mara Daffrin, also 19, well armed with a paring knife, in the Sands classroom building just as Daffrin entered the room. Two witnesses immediately ran to Daffrin's rescue and managed to disarm Sloan and restrain her. Daffrin's mother, Lonnie, told the Daily Mail her daughter thought Sloan tripped over her until she realized that something wasn't right. As she tried to run away, Sloan stabbed her in the back. As a result of this, Daffrin suffered a ruptured spleen and had to undergo surgery. I mean, that is just a pause before we continue with anything. I mean, just to think, a student coming into class, business as usual, and as we'll get to in the article, they don't even know each other. This is just a random vicious attack. And to think that you're just going to be randomly lunged at and attacked is just a horrendous thought. So, moving on through the article. Court documents say the stabbing happened without provocation or any words spoken. Though Sloan allegedly confessed she'd been planning the attack since the night before. In letters from her backpack obtained by ASU police, she wrote that she struggled with self-worth issues and penned apologies for what she anticipated doing. She also told officers that she struggled with thoughts of harming herself, harming others, but was disgusted by them. Disgusted by her thoughts, that is. The report says, however, she concluded that acting on those thoughts would make her problems go away, and picked Daffrin because she saw her as an easy target. Recognizing her from a previous class they shared, Sloan originally considered attacking a Navy veteran who happened to be one of the witnesses to pry her off of Daffrin, per the report. Well, you'd make her wonder, makes you wonder, okay, she saw a Navy veteran, obviously not an easy target. Daffrin, this girl, saw her as an easy target. Clearly, if we could take anything away from what we've read so far, this is clearly not a mentally stable person. This person is clearly not in their right mind, and something is not adding up here. Daffrin, on the other hand, told the police she didn't even know Sloan, nor did she have any idea why she had been targeted. She's currently in stable condition, according to her family. Sloan appeared to be normal. She was an academically well-performing student. Her social media has pictures of her traveling around the world with her family. And we actually have one of those pictures here, I believe. Here, let me pull up that picture and we can take a look at the suspect before, well, not the suspect, yeah, the suspect before the attack. The attacker, this is her traveling the world with her family. As you can see in the photo here, Sloan is pictured on the right. Casey Sloan, there she is, and this is one of her many trips with her family. Here's another image of her traveling, a part of their tour of Europe. There she is pictured on the right again. And this was the attacker. So by all considerations, she seemed to be, like they said, well-performing, normal student. Let's return to the article here now. So looking at the article again, she confessed that she had been planning the attack since the night before. In letters from her backpack obtained by ASU police, she wrote that she struggled with self-worth issues, which we've already covered. As we look here, it says that her social media has pictures of her traveling the world with her family, and she received the $5,000 New American University Dean's Award based on her academic success. She is now being held on a $250,000 bond, in the Maricopa County Jail records show. The university police have since filed a case with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. An ASU spokesperson told People she's been charged with suspicion of first-degree attempted murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and interfering with an educational institution and disorderly conduct. ASU and the entire ASU West, and this is the statement, okay, and I want to focus on this because for me at least, I can't speak for the victim's family, but for me this is just an egregious statement from ASU based on the situation. Okay, and I think there's some dynamics that we can break down here and really look at when it comes to ASU's politics. This is from ASU, and they said, ASU and the entire ASU West Valley campus community are deeply saddened by what happened. ASU West Valley is a tight-knit community of students, faculty, and staff. We are deeply appreciative of those who responded swiftly to intervene and provide assistance. Our thoughts continue to be with all impacted, the spokesperson said in a statement. Now, of course, you can always nitpick statements and say they should have said this or they should have said that. But I mean, this is truly egregious coming from a university system that is speaking to the victim, who is a student there. It was their job to make sure that the students are protected, to make sure that they feel safe in this environment. But I just think it's interesting. Okay, looking at the dynamic, knowing ASU's history, I am someone who is in Arizona. I know about ASU's history. I've heard stories about everything that they have going on. First off, they thank the people who provided assistance, which is great. But the ending, our thoughts continue to be with all impacted. There is no direct acknowledgement of Mara Daffrin. There's no acknowledgement reaching in the statement speaking about her family, wishing her recovery, helping her, you know, anything like that, just directly because she was the victim. There's no multiple victims here. She's the main victim. And then I find it interesting that ASU as an organization doesn't have the guts or the courage. It's not even courageous really, but just the competence to be able to condemn the actions of this student, to say that we do not condone the actions of the student. This student will be dealt with. There's no reassurance there for any of the students that anything, there's no reassurance to any of the ASU students that anything will be done to prevent this in the future. And that's got to be very disturbing. If I was an ASU student, I wouldn't feel comforted by this statement. I wouldn't feel like ASU is going to investigate this and find a way to prevent this from happening in the future. Now, obviously, it was a random attack and these happen. And obviously, it's something that, you can't always prevent, but there has to be at least an acknowledgement, an attempt to reach out to the victim and to, try and say that they're going to do everything they can to make sure this doesn't happen again and to investigate this and to condemn this culprit, the attacker. Now, I'm going to get into a bit of speculation here. I think it's safe speculation, granted the dynamics of everything that we've been through and how we've been gaslit as a culture this past, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe even decade or so. Something tells me, okay, and this is just a hunch that I have, just a small hunch, not a big hunch. Something tells me that if our victim was Casey Sloan and our attacker was Mara Daffrin, if you get which direction I'm heading, and the racial dynamics were reversed, that this would be an outrage, that this would be blown up, this would be nationwide news, this would be on the cover of every single YouTube video thumbnail, this would be on every single news piece from here until the election, from here until kingdom come. Do you know how much of an outrage it would be if a white student randomly, just randomly, went up and stabbed a black student and ASU didn't do anything about it, ASU didn't say anything about it? This is how the statement would read in this theory of mine, in this world where we have a white student stabbing a black student randomly. And even if they claimed it had no motivation, they had no, suspicion about it, or it was just random and they just chose them at random, even if, I guarantee you, ASU statement would read something like this. Every ASU and the entire ASU West Valley Campus community are deeply disgusted by the actions of this individual, and we, nor anyone else, condone acts of violence or racism against our minorities and against those affected. Our hearts reach out to Casey Sloan and her family, and we want to basically care for them and love on them during this time of distress. I guarantee you this would not be the same exact statement. This would not be in any way the same exact situation. This situation would be completely different. Knowing ASU's liberalism, knowing the dynamics of how these universities think and operate. And I just find it sad that this isn't being taken more seriously simply because of liberal ideology, victim ideology, because white people are treated as if though they can't be the victims of true crimes like this. I think it should go without saying that this is the truth, yet it needs to be said. So I'm going to pull up an image here after. This is Casey Sloan's mugshot. I think you'll get a kick out of this one. Let's take a look at her mugshot here. So here is Casey Sloan. And clearly just, this does not look like the same girl that was in the photos of her trip to Europe and everything. She's clearly deteriorated mentally. Something's not right. Some sort of evil spirit is coming over. Something weird has happened. And so this is what her mugshot looked like. She's even wearing this, kind of ironic. She's wearing the Arizona State University t-shirt. You could see it there in the photo. So this is our attacker. So getting back on point, looking back at these articles, there's a few interesting facts and a few interesting things that we can look at here. One of those things is the fact that Casey Sloan, like we said, from all intents and purposes, she lived a very wealthy life. Her family, lived in a very, very nice home. She lived in a home that was a $784,000 home in a gated community. European family trips, all these different things. And from all the things we could see, she was coming from a, decent family and a very well-off family. So by no sense of the word, she was poor or underprivileged or anything of that. So like we said, seemingly random, no motive behind it, just absolutely just out of pure, I don't know if it's rage or mental instability. A lot of things that could be speculated in that sense, but it was just an interesting thing that happened. So moving on, we mentioned in the beginning there about the story is that there was two witnesses who helped apprehend and restrain Casey Sloan. One of those victims actually being hailed as a hero, which is a great thing, which was actually the veteran student who was originally going to be targeted by Casey Sloan. And he recounts his story to Fox. And he just basically, his story, he says here, we'll read it again. It says, police said that Sloan stabbed Marie twice before classmate and Navy veteran Matthew McCormick intervened. I've never seen anything else like this, and I hope I never do again, McCormick said to Fox 10. The veteran said that he was settling in his microeconomics class when he spotted Sloan lunging towards Daffrin, saying that immediately he felt compelled to do something to help the situation. In that moment, I didn't really have a thought going through my head. This is McCormick speaking. I just knew that I felt compelled to do something. McCormick's quick actions stopped Sloan as she was going for a third strike. As she was going for a third strike, I was able to grab her wrist and apprehend her before further damage could be done. And I think it's safe to say that if there was no intervention, that if this brave man wasn't there to intervene, we might be having a different conversation here. And this might be a completely different world we're living in where Mara Daffrin is no longer with us. But God bless and thank the Lord for men, veterans, and of course the other witness wasn't named here, but thank them as well for their bravery in stepping in a case like this. Just amazing, amazing thing. This is kind of the silver lining of this story is these heroes able to step in and help. So wanted to focus on that because I felt like it wouldn't be right to basically acknowledge the story without acknowledging the heroes of that story and what they did to save Mara Daffrin from this attacker. Now comes, after the silver lining, probably the most disappointing part of the story. And we'll turn here to the most disappointing start of the story. This is an update that just came as of today when I'm recording this film, October 3rd. And here reads the headline from the Daily Mail. ASU stabber, Casey Sloan, has had her charges lowered and now faces less than 10 years in prison. Now, according to the update, from what I can see here, it says that 2 counts after her hearing were dropped by the judge. 2 counts were dropped on Monday's hearing. And Casey Sloan, at this point, it's not clear exactly which article, and nothing specifies which charges were dropped. I'm sure we'll get more details later, but we do know charges have been dropped from the case. And it seems like some major charges were dropped. I'm assuming potentially counts of attempted murder, first-degree attempted murder, which by all stretches of the imagination and the definition of attempted murder, this was that. If those men were not there, I don't know if the other one was a man or not, but if this veteran and the other witness weren't there, this 100% could have easily been a murder. She was going for a third strike. There was no signs of her stopping. So this is the easiest shut and done case of attempted murder. Witnesses, even people saw this. There's nothing, no lack of evidence, no mystery behind this. Yet it seems like the judges in this case, the judge dropped the attempted murder charge, and Sloan is now facing a lesser charge of aggravated assault with between 2 to 9 years. That is simply outrageous. The idea that someone could premeditate, plan an attack to kill somebody and get away with it with possibly 2 years in prison, that just goes to show that there's something wrong with our justice system. And Mara Daffrin's family, sadly, is experiencing that here. The article states, this is coming from Lonnie, Mara's devastated mother, has told the Daily Mail, "We are beside ourselves. The only way there could be justice is if my daughter had died. And even then, something tells me that maybe there wouldn't be the justice that we would be hoping for." Now, I want to paint this picture. Could you imagine, and just imagine with me, okay? Think about this with me. Could you imagine a world in which there was an ASU student, a white man, white woman, doesn't matter, just they are a white person. They come into a classroom, they're premeditating this, they're saying that they're thinking about this, and they say that there's a black student and that they're an easy target. And they use those words. Everything's the same. You just change the racial dynamic. And the judges drop the charges, and this black family has their child, this student in recovery, and basically this white family gets off the hook, and the charges are dropped, and this white student is now only facing between 2 and 9 years for attempted murder. There would be outrage, there would be riots, there would be protests, the whole universe would explode. Oh my goodness, this would be on the cover of every magazine, every headline, every leftist news article would be covering it. It would be the complete annihilation of life as we know it, according to leftist ideology. Yet you have this student simply just able to let it go. And from what I can see, it is not at the wishes of the Daffrin family. They are very upset by this. They want justice. They do not feel like this is fair. It'd be one thing maybe, and I don't know why a family would do this, but it'd be one thing if the family maybe knew the victim, was sympathetic to their situation, and wanted these charges dropped, which happens in many cases, but that was not the case here. And they wanted justice to be served, and it simply was not. And this is coming straight from Daffrin. This is continuing with the article. Daffrin was equally mystified about the motive as she spoke to police just before going into surgery. And just to clarify, I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but the injury sustained from this, the stabbing ruptured Mara Daffrin's spleen, and she had injuries to her chest and arm, and she needed emergency surgery for the stabbings that took place during this time. So this was serious. There needed to be some intervention here for Mara Daffrin. Daffrin continues on. She says, "I'm just scared because I don't know why the F she would stab me." Daffrin's mother, Lonnie, told the Daily Mail that her daughter did not realize that she'd been attacked. And we've heard this, thought she was tripping. Mara tried to help her up. Then she realized something wasn't right, and she turned and ran and was stabbed in the back. She's way too afraid to go back to ASU. Her professors are working with her to do online lectures. I hope she'll be able to go back next year. She's still having a little bit of pain. The thing is, she's having nightmares and having to sleep with me. Like I said, this is going to be a short video. I just wanted to cover this because I felt like this is just something that is absurd. The moment I saw the fact that these charges were being lessened, I knew I had to cover this and bring some attention to this and shine a spotlight on ASU and just the way in which they're handling it, which is atrocious. You know that for a fact, if the roles were reversed in any way, shape, or form, and I'm just saying the quiet part out loud, first off, if this student was claiming they'd be afraid to go back, anything like that, you know the professors, the institution would gather around that black individual. They would shower them with love. They would do all this stuff. They'd give them a detail escort. They'd have an ASU police officer walk with them to and fro when they return back. And I just have doubts. I just have very little doubts that that is going to be done for Mara Daffrin after this experience. She's going to be left to fend for herself. She's not going to get the special treatment just because simply she's a white individual and Casey Sloan is black. And it is very sad to me because there used to be an image in this country that Lady Justice was blind. She wore a blindfold and she gave equal measures. The left wants to talk about equity. Equality in the justice system looks like no matter what the color of your skin is, we treat you the same based on the letter of the law, and we implement our laws not based on race, creed, religion, anything of that sort, but solely and purely on the merits of your crime and the evidence that is there in that. And this is not lacking merit, evidence, or anything to prosecute Casey Sloan for attempted murder. Yet here we are having this conversation. My heart goes out to the victim's family and to the situation they're in. I continue to pray for them for recovery. Us here at at Principal Politics are going to continue to cover any updates, anything that comes about of this story. And yeah, we just hope that this does not happen again. But like I said, it is just a tragedy that the narratives have to be played out this way, and that white individuals have to be victimized uh, in this way, and they don't even receive any sort of privileges for it. They don't receive any sort of attention. This isn't even a story that you've maybe even heard of until this point of watching this video. And so we're deeply disturbed here at Principal Politics, and we figured we'd shine a little light on this. So thank you for watching and or listening. Hope you enjoyed this little mini episode covering this, to me, this very important news line. I wanted to announce this here on this episode if you've made it this far. I'm going to leave a link below this YouTube video. And if you're watching on our website, then that's great too. You can find it on our website at principal-politics.com. We have added a new tip line that you can find at our footer at the very bottom of our page, on any of the pages on our website. If you have any information regarding any stories, any headlines that you feel like are newsworthy and you want to have light and attention brought to them, please feel free to leave any tips or stories in that tip line. And we will definitely be able to work with you on that and to hopefully bring more light and attention to some stories like this one that are not being covered and that are surprisingly not getting any light shown on them. I think when I was researching for this article, when I was researching for this episode, I could only find maybe one article on the fact that these charges had been lowered, which I think is humiliating, to say the least, from the media. So like I said, thank you for watching and or listening. That'll do it for our episode today. And don't forget to stay principled.